He's the latest Australian diagnosed with coronavirus after contracting it on board the Diamond Princess cruise ship in Japan. The 80-year-old will now be moved to a hospital on the mainland to receive treatment.
It has become the cruise from hell, with more than 250 Canadians trapped in their cabins.
A floating jailhouse.
That's Alan Chow and his wife Diana from Toronto. They haven't left their room in 7 days, and they desperately want off the ship. They even joined Twitter to call for help, tweeting photos of their meals, their room. And they're also working the phones, calling Ottawa and the local embassy in Japan.
The answer is same thing.
They're working on it.
Yeah, they're working on it.
The Ministry of Health has just advised us of an additional 44 positive tests from prior tests.
The passengers on this ship are now part of a living science experiment, a floating petri dish.
We've known for a long time that cruise ships are perfectly designed to spread viral infections.
Also limit close contact by maintaining a 6 feet or 2 meter distance away from others.
The narrow quarters on board make it hard to follow even that instruction. And already, at least 218 passengers have somehow become infected, the largest concentration of cases outside China. So far, 12 Canadians are sick, including the couple traveling with the Chows.
What I am afraid right now is only 7 days, 218 affected, including my friend. And some of them are serious, like my friend.
Today, Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister had some promising news.
We understand that from the Japanese authorities that they may allow for some people to disembark from the ship and be put in quarantine on shore. We are following with that.
The details of that plan have so far not been released.
Get us home.
It can't happen soon enough for the Chows.
At sea caused by this worldwide virus problem.
Yeah, it's worst aboard the Diamond Princess, carrying more than 200 passengers confirmed to be infected. By contrast, Holland America's MS Westerdam has had no reports of the coronavirus on board.
And yet, no country would allow it to dock until now. Jamie Edmonds spoke with some Michiganders on board, and Jamie, things are looking better for them.
That's right, Devin. I just talked to Steve Muth from Onstead. He's on board. He says the Westerdam has docked in Cambodia and they are cleared to get off the ship, although it hasn't happened yet. And he says despite all of these logistical problems, the trip wasn't that bad.
You walk through the lounge here, the Tiki Lounge, there's people drinking, bottles of wine and having mixed drinks.
Steve Muth of Onstead says the vibe on board Holland America's Westerdam has and continues to be positive, but concerns over the coronavirus has kept this ship out at sea without a port to dock in. 5 countries have denied it access. Tuesday, Muth told us that he thought the ship would dock in Thailand, but after anchoring offshore, Muth noticed a Thai warship outside his window.
It wasn't huge, but it had big guns on it. And as far as I know, this cruise ship doesn't have big guns. So the warship essentially hung around for an hour or two until we decided, I should say the captain and senior players decided it was time to move on. So they came back to us and said that we would be heading to Cambodia.
Once outside Cambodian waters, Muth says military and health teams boarded the cruise ship.
A couple of Cambodian boats approached, health officials collecting some information. That information just came back. Those folks came back completely clean. So
that cleared the way for the Westerdam to finally dock. Now that this saga is almost over, he hopes there are policies put into place so passengers aren't stranded at sea ever again.
There needs to be a better strategic plan on how to deal with this.
To be clear, Muth is talking about those local governments that did not allow the ship to dock. The cruise line, he says, has been great, and they're working on getting all the passengers off right now. I just talked to him. It's morning the next day there. They plan to go to an airport and then go to the capital of Cambodia before they come back to Detroit. So he says the cruise line is giving them another cruise for free, and they're getting refunded for this cruise. We're live tonight. Jamie Edmonds, Local 4.
Wouldn't want to hustle right back onto a cruise ship for a while. That's let's quickly get you caught up on where the rest of things stand today, though, with the coronavirus. 15 now confirmed cases in the U.S. The latest, a recent evacuee from Wuhan, China, who was quarantined at an Air Force base in Texas. But worldwide, we're now up to more than 60,000 confirmed cases after a change in the way that China is calculating the cases. and there are more than 1,300 deaths reported, almost all of those in China.
Case confirmed right here in the U.S. One of the Americans evacuated from Wuhan coming down with the virus in San Diego. This as the number of cases worldwide now tops 42,000 and the number of deaths is over 1,000. Maggie Rulli joins us from Yokohama, Japan, where that quarantine cruise ship is still docked this morning. Good morning to you, Maggie.
Cecilia, good morning. The U.S. Embassy has promised to do everything they can for all the Americans on board that ship. And now we also know that a specialist from the CDC is here on the ground in Japan to help. This morning, San Diego is now the site of the 13th confirmed case of the novel coronavirus in the U.S. after an adult has tested positive while undergoing further testing at the federal quarantine at MCAS Myanmar. This as tension rises in Japan. At least 135 confirmed cases of the virus on that quarantine cruise ship.
Guests in inside cabins without windows and fresh air must start to spend more time outside.
The ship's captain announcing more outside time for guests without windows, attempting to keep passengers healthy and active. Passengers say the crew is taking extra precautions.
Just as of yesterday, they brought us new masks. These are a little bit more thicker, a little bit more sturdy, intense, whatever. And they want us to now wear these when we open the door to get our food, anytime we open the door to get anything.
Princess Cruises is now taking steps to protect future trips in a statement saying any individual who has traveled from or through mainland China, Macau, or Hong Kong within 14 days of the start of this cruise will not be permitted to board the ship. The virus has now sickened more than 40,000 people, the death toll rising to more than 1,000, with about 3,000 additional cases in the last 24 hours. Hong Kong evacuating 100 people from an apartment complex after 2 people who were separated by 10 floors both tested positive for the virus. Authorities suspect a bathroom renovation caused air to escape through a pipe. Meanwhile, chilling images coming out of Chinese social media. Teams of people in hazmat suits seen dragging a panicked family from their apartment after they reportedly refused to self-quarantine. And this self-described citizen journalist defying the Chinese government to report on the shortages of masks and protective clothing now hasn't been seen or heard from in days. The 34-year-old man had already expressed anxiety over both the virus and the government's ability to silence dissent. This as Chinese President Xi Jinping made a rare appearance in a surgical mask, touring public locations and a city hospital in Beijing Monday afternoon, according to state media. But as the virus spreads beyond China, the search is now on for a so-called super spreader, a businessman from England who traveled to Singapore and then France, the UK, and his local pub. He's believed to have passed the virus to at least 7 different people, now linked to cases in 3 countries. On average, medical experts think that someone with this new coronavirus typically gives it to about 2 to 3 people, but a super spreader can give it to 3 times that amount. And guys, that is why medical experts are so concerned about them. They have a massive impact on this outbreak. Guys.
Okay, Maggie, thanks. We've got one of those medical experts right here. So let's bring in Dr. Jennifer Ashton. You just heard Maggie mention this in her report, that there are these new reports out there suggesting the virus might be spreading through buildings, even through pipes. And this seems to be raising new concerns about how this spreads.
Cecilia, if that were true, of course, it would be concerning. The key thing right now is that as much as everyone wants to get out there with facts, we don't know. And we're not comfortable in our society, just like we're not comfortable in medicine and science saying we don't know. But that's the honest answer right now. So rather than spread fear with, theories or things that we can't confirm, right now we have to say, okay, true, and maybe related, maybe unrelated.
Well, quarantining has been a big part of all of this, but what are the potential risks and the potential benefits?
Well, Michael, when we see governments take preemptive steps like quarantine, isolation, travel restrictions, we have to be clear that is to safeguard public health, and it can be incredibly important. It's one of the key steps in managing an outbreak that they go identify, isolate than diagnose and treat. And while absolutely it's not pleasant, and the downsides would be stress and upset, and in the case of one of those ships, you know, the crew being very closely confined, different than the passengers, there are some risks there that we need to evaluate, but on whole, their benefits outweigh those risks.
And Jen, President Trump had a lot of people scratching their heads when he said that warm weather will kill this kind of virus.
We don't know. I mean, MERS spread in the Arabian Peninsula at 110 degrees, so we just don't know yet with this novel virus. Again, we have to be able to say what we know and what we don't know. There's no evidence of that yet.
And so much we do not know. Jen Ashton, thanks very much.